Chapter 17 of She and Allan. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Reading by Lars Rolander. She and Allan by H. Rider Haggard. Chapter 17. The Midnight Battle. That hour went by very slowly. Again and again I consulted my watch by the light of the moon, which was now rising high in the heavens, and thought that it would never come to an end. Listen as I would, there was nothing to be heard, and as the mist still prevailed, the only thing I could see, except the heavens, was the twinkling of the fires lit by Goroko and his party. At length it was done, and there was no sign of Hans. Another half hour passed and still no sign of Hans. "I think that light in darkness is dead or taken prisoner," said Umslopogaas. I answered that I feared so, but that I would give him another 15 minutes and then, if he did not appear, I proposed to order an advance, hoping to find the enemy where we had last seen them from the top of the mountain. The 15 minutes went by also, and as I could see that the Amahagger captains who sat at a little distance were getting very nervous, I picked up my double-barrelled rifle and turned round so that I faced uphill with a view of firing it as had been agreed with Goroko, but in such a fashion that the flashes perhaps would not be seen from the plain below. For this purpose I moved a few yards to the left to get behind the trunk of a tree that grew there, and was already lifting the rifle to my shoulder, when a yellow hand clasped the barrel and a husky voice said, "Don't fire yet, Baas, as I want to tell you my story first." I looked down and there was the ugly face of Hans wearing a grin that might have frightened the man in the moon. "Well," I said with cold indifference, assumed I admit, to hide my excessive joy at his safe return, "tell on and be quick about it. I suppose you lost your way and never found them." "Yes, Baas, I lost my way for the fog was very thick down there, but in the end I found them all right, by my nose, Baas, for those man-eating people smell strong, and I got the wind of one of their sentries. It was easy to pass him in the mist, Baas, so easy that I was tempted to cut his throat as I went, but I didn't for fear lest he should make a noise. No, I walked on right into the middle of them, which was easy too, for they were all asleep, wrapped up in blankets. They hadn't any fire, perhaps because they didn't want them to be seen, or perhaps because it is so hot down in that low land. I don't know which. So I crept on taking note of all I saw, till at last I came to a little hill of which the top rose above the level of the mist, so that I could see on it a long hut built of green boughs with the leaves still fresh upon them. Now I thought that I would crawl up to the hut, since it came into my mind that Rezu himself must be sleeping there, and that I might kill him. But while I stood hesitating I heard a noise like to that made by an old woman whose husband had thrown a blanket over her to keep her quiet, or to that of a bee in a bottle, a sort of droning noise that reminded me of something. I thought a while and remembered that when Red Beard was on his knees praying to heaven, as is his habit when he has nothing else to do, Baas, he makes a noise just like that. I crept towards the sound, and presently there I found Red Beard himself tied upon a stone and looking as mad as a buffalo bull stuck in a swamp, for he shook his head and rolled his eyes about, just as though he had had 2 bottles of bad gin, Baas, and all the while he kept saying prayers. Now I thought that I would cut him loose and bent over him to do so, when by ill luck he saw my face and began to shout, saying, 'Go away, you yellow devil.
I know you have come to take me to hell, but you are too soon, and if my hands were loose I would twist your head off your shoulders.' He said this in English, Baas, which, as you know, I can understand quite well, after which I was sure that I had better leave him alone. Whilst I was thinking there came out of the hut above two old men dressed in nightshirts, such as you white people wear, with yellow things upon their heads that had a metal picture of the sun in front of them."
"Medicine men," I suggested.
"Yes, Baas, or predicants of some sort, for they were rather like your reverend father when he dressed himself up and went into a box to preach. Seeing them, I slipped back a little way to where the mist began, lay down and listened. They looked at Red Beard, for his shouts at me had brought them out, but he took no notice of them, only went on making a noise like a beetle in a tin can. 'It is nothing,' said one of the predicants to the other in the same tongue that these Amahagger use, 'but when is he to be sacrificed? Soon, I hope, for I cannot sleep because of the noise he makes.' 'When the edge of the sun appears, not before,' answered the other predicant. 'Then the new queen will be brought out of the hut and this white man will be sacrificed to her.' 'I think it is a pity to wait so long,' said the first predicant, 'for never shall we sleep in peace until the red hot pot is on his head.' 'First the victory, then the feast,' answered the second predicant, 'though he will not be so good to eat as that fat young woman who was with the new queen.' Then, Baas, they both smacked their lips and one of them went back towards the hut, but the other did not go back. No, he sat down on the ground and glowered at Baas Red Beard upon the stone. More, he struck him on the face to make him quiet. Now, Baas, when I saw this and remembered that they had said that they had eaten Janee, whom I liked although she was such a fool, the spirit in me grew so very angry and I thought that I would give this old skellum,' that is rascal, 'of a predicant a taste of sacrifice himself, after which I purposed to creep up to the hut and see if I could get speech with the Lady Sad Eyes if she was there. So I wriggled up behind the predicant as he sat glowering over Red Beard and stuck my knife into his back where I thought it would kill him at once. But it didn't, Baas, for he fell on to his face and began to make a noise like a wounded hyena before I could finish him. Then I heard a sound of shouts and to save my life I was obliged to run away into the mist without losing Red Beard or seeing Lady Sad Eyes. I ran very hard, Baas, making a wide circle to the left and so at last got back here. That's all, Baas."
"And quite enough too," I answered, "though if they did not see you, the death of the medicine man may frighten them. Poor Janee! Well, I hope to come even with those devils before they are 3 hours older." Then I called up Umslopogaas and the Amahagger captains and told them the substance of the story, also that Hans had located the army or part of it. The end of it was that we made up our minds to attack at once. Indeed, I insisted on this, as I was determined, if I could, to save that unfortunate man, Robertson, who from Hans' account evidently was now quite mad and raving. So I fired the 2 shots as had been arranged and presently heard the sound of distant shoutings on the slope of the opposing ridge. A few minutes later we started, Umslopogaas and I leading the vanguard and the Amahagger captains following with the 3 remaining companies. Now the reader, presuming the existence of such a person, will think that everything is sure to go right, that this cunning old fellow, Allan Quatermain, is going to surprise and wipe the floor with those Jesuits who were already beguiled by the trick he had instructed Goroko to play. That after this he will rescue Robertson, who doubtless shortly recovers his mind, also Inez with the greatest ease, in fact that everything will happen as it ought to do, if this were a romance instead of a mere record